Hello, everyone. I am Bülent Öztürk, Secretary General of Turkish IR Society. I'm very excited to welcome to you our webinar on institutional investor and institutional investor research survey. In every summit, we hosted Amani after the results of the survey for the key findings, but our members requested to how can we winner of the these awards. So this time, before voting, we are hosting Amani to tell us the process of the survey. So welcome, Amani.
Thank you very much, Bülent. Thank you, TÜYİD. Thank you for the kind introduction and wonderful to see you all here. Well, first of all, I want to make sure that I obviously make sure that everybody is fine. I hope you and your loved ones, everybody in Turkey is fine. I think I can't think of a stronger people, more resilient people to deal with a tragedy, but I wish you all well. As Bülent announced, we're going through the survey process today, so hopefully very exciting for you all. And I would like to keep this session, even though we have 30 minutes, as interactive as possible. So I would like to answer all the questions, all the commentary that you have, please bring it in. It's always important to hear from you and to get your feedback. What I will do is I will guide you through a very brief presentation, but also show you online the different steps that we are asking you to do as part of the survey process, and please jump in if you have questions. I'm not sure if Bülent has muted you all, but if you can, raise your hand. We can take questions as and when you would like to ask any questions. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and hopefully we can get going very quickly on that. So I hope you can all see my screen.
Yes, we can. You can
fantastic.
Enlarge if you want.
Yes, fantastic.
Yes,
so
perfect.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Bülent. So basically, as Bülent mentioned, we are just about to start the process for the Emerging EMEA Executive Team Survey. For you who are very familiar with institutional investor, we obviously have been around for over 50 years. Our main client base and customer base are the asset managers, asset allocators globally, and the banks. So we're servicing them across all of our businesses with insights, with memberships, with forums, thought leadership, and it's a very exciting and very dynamic business that allows us to advise, but also to get feedback and understand where the trends really are in the markets and to drive those trends forward. The same kind of universe of contacts that we're engaging with on the buy side and on the sell side are invited to participate as part of our annual surveys. So it's a really very well curated and maintained database of individuals that are key players in their respective areas, and therefore, if you like, pioneers and visionaries and thought leaders. So it's very important to always include these people to provide feedback, not only for corporates, but also, as you know, and a lot of you are familiar with, on the sell side as well. So in many ways, what we are doing is really, if you like, a self-perpetuating feedback loop and ecosystem of buy side, sell side, and corporates who are all engaging to provide independent feedback on their respective services and their respective engagements, all really as an ultimate goal to improve and advance investor relations, advance the research coverage and the research efforts to ensure that every counterpart really has the right kind of tools, information, and insights to make better decisions and really make the business that they were operating in much more resilient. I'm going to just very quickly zoom out of the presentation and just share with you how we're actually really gaining and obtaining the feedback that helps you eventually also improve the areas within the investor relations function. So hopefully we'll move out and I'll be able to show you the live website or the live tool that we are basically gathering the information. So here's an example of a company. I didn't choose a Turkish company because I didn't know who will be actually attending, but it's an example, and you will have obviously the same kind of view for Turkish companies, for your own company, where we're basically highlighting the ranking results across each and every of those different categories. So you very quickly are able not only to see your own results for the year, but you are able to track and monitor investor relations. And this is really important in an environment where you are engaging very actively, very proactively. There's a lot of information that is being distributed, almost like an overwhelming amount of information. So you need to really assess and monitor what sticks, what really resonates with the investor community, so you can look at that and optimize. So across each of these areas, you can basically look at how you're improving, where the pain points are, where you have potentially underperformed year on year. But more importantly, and I will show you that very briefly as well, is how do you compare with your peers in your sector? So you can see here in this view, the number of voters that have actually contributed to the feedback within the chemical sector here from our European survey, the number of firms that have actually contributed to the feedback, how many companies were nominated, and how many individuals were nominated. And this is really important because for you to be able to understand and fully reap the rewards from the survey and from the results, you need to understand the context that the survey is also in, who is participating, who are the companies that are being evaluated. And through all of these different functions and features, you can then drill down deeper to identify really where you're underperforming compared to your peers. You can look at ESG. You can look at, who within ESG on the buy side, for instance, really resonates very well with the investor community. So you can look at European investors, for instance. So it gives you the ability to really drill down deeper into the analysis, into the feedback that we're getting from the buy side and sell side, all that to really inform and shape your investor relations program strategically. I'm going to jump back into the presentation because I would like to share with you as well the different categories that we have for the different evaluations. So bear with me, it's a little bit stuck. So hopefully you can see the categories here on the screen. You can see CEO, CFO. These are obviously very important areas. These are areas that we have seen in Turkey actually increase over the years with a lot more visibility and access to the senior management, which is really important in terms of building credibility and trust. Very important are that we're not asking the buy side and sell side to assess CEO and CFO generically, but there are very specific performance metrics and qualities that we ask them to assess. So you can see here for CEO, leadership, communication, credibility, for the CFO, financial stewardship, capital allocation, and communication. One of the newer categories that we have introduced last year is the board of directors. So we're getting a lot of feedback from buy side and sell side in terms of, getting more access to the people that are overseeing the strategy, that are really overseeing, your governance structures. And in that sense, we have basically introduced last year the category for board of directors. Now, this was only a generic category where we are only asking them to be rated generically. This year, because of the increased interest in the board of director category, with a lot of people voting in that category, we have decided to really identify a much more nuanced kind of feedback and obtain more detailed feedback from the buy side and sell side. So we decided to include those metrics and attributes that you can see here: diversity and composition, stewardship and strategy, tenure, and board refreshment. So I'd be interested to hear also from where I think in emerging markets it may be slightly different, but this is certainly an area where we're seeing a lot of growth in. And then we have and continue to have the IRO professional category. There are no specific attributes associated with that, because obviously all of this here within the IR program category, these are really, I guess, the crux and the core of your own deliverables on an annual basis, periodically, with your really engagement and your interaction with the market. So we're looking at financial disclosure as an underlying subcategory. For this year, we have made a slight change where we removed or replaced the timing to market with the quality and relevance of your financial disclosure. And this is really based on quite a lot of feedback from our stakeholders to make that kind of shift, to really look at, the importance and the value of the disclosure that helps investors moving forward. Then we're looking at granularity and consistency. So these attributes remain the same. And then the second subcategory for IR program is services and communication. Underneath that, we have business and market knowledge, productivity of meetings during conferences, during your NDRs, during your roadshows, your site visits, anything where you're really physically engaging with your investor audience. The earnings calls, IR credibility and authority, and responsiveness. So in terms of the feedback that we're getting, business and market knowledge and IR credibility are probably one of the two categories where buy side and sell side really assess companies very, very meticulously, because it's really important. It goes back to how you're actually contextualizing your company in terms of the market knowledge and how you're positioning it with a macroeconomic or with a sector backdrop, but also in terms of credibility, how you've been empowered as IR professionals to really, speak on the company's behalf and really represent the company in a credible manner. Because as I'm sure a lot of a large proportion of the investors want to see CEO and CFO, that's for sure. They want to be able to connect with them and interact with them. But you as a function are strategically so valuable to the investor audience, because you provide more context in terms of the company and its future and its growth and so on and so forth. And then we have ESG, of course, and that remains really sort of the same as last year. These are generic areas, as obviously ESG is becoming a little bit more transparent. It's still very much of a gray zone, but we still want the buy side and sell side to assess you on the materiality within your disclosure, your ESG engagement, if you do anything above and beyond your investor events or any other kind of company organized events that really allows you to shine the light on your ESG activities, and then to what extent you've integrated ESG into your corporate strategy. And then finally, we have the investor event, and this is an area of growth. We're seeing more and more company actually do investor events in addition to the capital markets day. So this is important. These are investor events that are deep dives or meet the CEO or specific workshops or specific, product related presentations where you bring in subject matter experts from your company, which are always really useful and insightful for the investor community. I'm going to pause for a second and just ask you if you have any questions with respect to those kind of categories and any feedback.
Okay. I wanted to know the last two categories are differently awarded or within the IR program.
The ESG and the investor event?
Are there the new categories of the award? No?
Yes. So for the Turkish IR Awards, and that's a very good question. Thank you, Bülent. For the Turkish IR Awards, we're not taking ESG and investor event into consideration. It's only this IR program for best company and investor relations. Again, but this is something we can talk about and see what drives more value. Of course, ESG is becoming more and more important, and it almost needs to stand on its own feet in terms of recognition and understanding how companies are operating in that space. Does that answer your question?
Sure, thank you.
Okay, that's excellent. What I wanted to show you, and some of you may have not seen it before, is our voting platform. So this is the voting platform, and for some of you who are basically advising or creating awareness during the polling time with your buy side and sell side contacts, it's really important for you to understand how the process looks like. This is currently our testing site, so not all information are up to date, but it's just to show you in form of demonstration how this works. This is the typical view from a buy-side perspective. So this is a senior manager at an investment company. They have to obviously assess all of these sell-side related categories. But right here at the top, and you can't miss that, is the CEO, CFO, investor relations category. And we're clicking on that category. I've selected emerging EMEA. So these are all the Turkish companies that will be included here. Part of our methodology, and that's really, really important, and it's also important for your understanding of the awards results, is we have no influence on which companies are being nominated as part of the survey process, because it is a completely unprompted and unsolicited process. We don't give, as you can see here, a list of companies for buy side and sell side to choose from. They have to type in the name of the company here, okay? They have to type in the name of the company for you to then go and assess this company across all of these metrics, okay? So it's really important that you understand that this is a completely independent survey process where we don't have an impact on it. So they go ahead and basically rate each area from 1 to 5. 1 is average, 5 is excellent. None of these areas that I've just shown you on the PowerPoint presentation, none of these performance metrics are mandatory. So they can be as comprehensive and as selective in their voting and in their rating and evaluation of your deliverables. So it's really important to also bear that in mind. Also important is it's not only a quantitative assessment of your investor relations engagement and interaction, but we're also asking for feedback. So for buy side and sell side to be able to provide information on why they have rated you in that manner, what is good, what is bad, because, you know, again, the ultimate goal is to really identify how you can move forward and improve and be competitive. So they go through this. It's super efficient. It does take a little bit of time, but it's still a very efficient process. One of the areas here for company board of directors, we only want them to assess the board of directors if they've also really engaged with them. So we don't want a blanket feedback across the board, but we want it to be very deliberate and very sort of thought through. So only if they have engaged with the board of directors, they go ahead and actually evaluate them across these different metrics. The only area that is pre-populated with names is the area for the CEO and the area for the CFO. And again, they have the ability here to evaluate you. So this is important. The reason why it's pre-populated is because, of course, there's no alternative to the CEO. Then there's no second or third CEO to choose from. And this is now really important for you to know. For the investor relations officer category, there is no drop-down list. So again, they have to put in the name. And I don't know if Ebru is here, so I'm just choosing you now, Ebru. So they have to put the name of the individual they wish to assess. Again, it's a very deliberate, it's a very thought-through process. Not everyone will be visible and present and has that kind of relationship and quality of engagement for them to actually put you down here by name. So again, they click on the name that they have put in and they go ahead and evaluate. Each rating from 1 to 5 can only be given once. So if you have a team that is more than 5 people and they're all market facing, then the voter has to be very deliberate about how they're going to allocate the vote. So it's really important from a methodological standpoint and from your visibility in the survey to also understand that. The single allocation of each rating is only within the company. They can go back and vote for as many companies as they want. So there's no limitation there, okay? And then finally, we have a more trending question that is not impacting the ranking. It's really trying to understand to what extent buy side and sell side are engaging with executive team members outside of the CEO and CFO, because we're seeing a lot of companies that are asking CEOs or CTOs or CIOs to also engage with the market. And we want to capture this as a piece of information and maybe for the future as a possibility to evolve and to grow the ranking into including other executive team members. So this is the survey process. Are there any questions with regards to the survey process? Fabulous. Well, that's great. Just a few things. I've highlighted some of the methodological elements, but I'm just going to, go over some of those points again in terms of clarity. So again, the survey captures a global buy side and sell side universe. These are all pre-vetted individuals. It's only equity unless there are fixed income analysts that also cover equity. So then they are included. As I mentioned, everybody gets qualified before we do our proactive outreach to our proprietary database contact list, and it's really important that when you're also providing your contact list, that we basically cross-reference that with what we have, and we have to make sure that everybody is relevant and can provide authentic feedback. So people who are participating, they have to be invested from a buy-side standpoint in emerging EMEA. They have to be invested potentially in your sector or in your peers for us to allow them in. On the sell side, they have to have covered your stock for the last 12 to 18 months. So we make those kind of eligibility assessments to make sure that only relevant people participate. Every company in emerging EMEA that is listed in emerging EMEA and therefore also listed in Turkey is automatically eligible. You actually do not or are not required to do anything proactively. You can be voted on as long as you're a listed entity. So that's also important. Now, in terms of how we work out the results, they are obviously rating based from 1 to 5. Those kind of points get added up to finally determine a score, and there's no weighting in terms of buy-side and sell-side voting. So every buy-sider, every sell-sider, it's an equal vote. It's a completely democratized system because obviously our analysis shows exactly how you are faring, how you're being perceived across different and specific voter demographics. So you can actually see where you're doing, where you're under or overperforming. I hope that's clear in terms of methodology. Now, in terms of next steps for you, so there are a few things that we ask you to do, and I want to be very clear with this because none of the next steps that we are asking you to do is impacting your eligibility to receive votes. So you can receive votes whether you participate in this process or not, just to be clear. We have the roster information. So it's a two-step process where we ask you to verify your contact details. So this is important. Why? Because when people are adding new names, for instance, to the IRO team, we have the ability to very quickly check that with the information that you're providing to us. So I just wanted to share with you the roster site. You have to log in and sign up into this platform. The links have been already provided to you, I hope, via email since the 6th of March. You have to sign up here and basically go through the list of names that we have for you of your company. Through the trickle-in here, you basically can edit or you can basically identify them as having left the company. If you want to add new contacts, you need to use the add new contacts. So please do not replace information within one profile. So if a person has left, do not replace the information of the exited individual with new additional members. So you need to actually delete them, left the firm, or add new individuals and verify their position and so on and so forth. The second step of that, so this is a really important process. Again, it's only for us to make sure that we can allocate votes more efficiently. The second step is basically the trends survey. And in the trends survey, so you click on this link and it takes you to the voting platform where you're logging in with the same credentials that you have basically used to verify your contact details. And this process is important because we are asking you information about trends within your IR best practices, but also really critically, as I mentioned earlier, we have the self-perpetuating three-way feedback loop. You have the ability to also vote for buy-side and sell-side firms across different metrics. So this is really important because the buy-side and sell-side are really looking at those results. So please take the time to actually assess the buy side and sell side through this process here, and you can see a snapshot of the survey here. Now, finally, in terms of, and I think this is really important, in terms of campaigning, and I know that there are some questions with regards to that. The sell side is obviously notorious for campaigning during the survey process. We would like you as well to campaign in the sense that you create awareness and you tell your buy side and sell side contact that the results from the survey are important to you. We still have quite a few investors that don't even think that you are looking at those results. So it's really important that you create this awareness and ask people to participate in the survey. It doesn't mean that you ask them to vote for yourself, right? There's a very slight difference there. So we have the banner here, which we will distribute to you as well when the polling starts on the 11th of April. And for some of you, you've already submitted your contact list for the buy side and sell side. You also have the option to share with us your buy and sell side contacts. It follows basically data protection and GDPR guidelines. But for companies that are more comfortable having an agreement in place, we also have a data sharing agreement in place that you can sign, and then you can very safely share the contacts with us, so we can basically verify these contacts and include them as part of our outreach. And then just a few sort of timelines. the corporate survey and the corporate roster, where you verify and complete the trends questions and rank the buy side and sell side, runs from the 6th of March to the 11th of April. And then the survey starts, where the buy side and sell side basically assess you from the 11th of April to the 5th of May. We always extend for the sell side voters by 1 week. So for the sell side, the survey runs until the 12th of May. And then in mid-September, we publish the sector results, the top 3, as I'm sure you're all aware. And then finally, of course, with our collaboration and our wonderful collaboration with TÜYİD, we have the awards that are scheduled, as far as I understand, in December, where we then present the awards to the successful winners across the different categories that we have as part of the awards. So I will pause here and would like to invite you to ask questions if something is unclear, or if you have any comments. I'd love to hear them.
Next year's winners, one of the winners, Ebru Güvener is here.
Okay.
It was your sample. Anyone from our guests to contribute or ask any question?
I can see now who is there. Maybe, I mean, Gülsen Ayes from head of IR at Turkish Telecom. Perhaps can you share maybe with the audience your take on the survey, what it is that you do, how you see them? Because I think it's, you know, much better to hear from you directly than from me. I'm obviously clearly biased, but it's great because you obviously have done incredibly well in the survey, and it's something that has also grown and improved gradually. It wasn't, you know, overnight. So perhaps you have some thoughts on that, please.
Yeah, sure. By the way, I mean, do you have time for this? I've seen the last 5 minutes flash on the screen. Or
no time pressure.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much. It was a great presentation, and thank you for the opportunity. I think it's best to start with a statement saying that Turkish IR people are great in the sense that, I mean, they are doing this at global standards for sure. And we have got great management teams that do attribute the, I mean, necessary importance to this very strategic and critical function. But we need metrics and assessment of what we are doing at individual levels and company levels. And in that sense, I think the Institutional Investor Survey comes in as a very powerful tool. It's very nice to get the votes and make it to the stage for sure, but more important than that is to look into the data, what it is telling to us and what the messages there are. And as you mentioned, I mean, you can benchmark yourself with the region, across your sector, your any company in the Turkish universe, or buy side or sell side feedback. So once you run that exercise and aggregate the data, actually it's telling a lot of information about your strengths and weaknesses or your areas of improvement. And that is the way we looked into the data, and we utilized and we benefited a lot from throughout this journey. They might be, I mean, some of them might be low-hanging fruits, more easily fixable, and some of them might be requiring more focus and time and management involvement and board involvement and all that. And you get this granular information from the data behind the survey. I think that is the great part of it. And ultimately, it takes you to a point where you, I mean, are able to increase the profile of your company and where you can get better engagement with the investment professionals. So I think that's what we benefited from, and also it evolves in time. It's not a static exercise. As you showed to us, I mean, you are now looking for more granular information about the board of directors and over the last few years on ESG performances and all that. So I think knowing where we are is a great start to be able to make progress on those issues in the coming time. Yeah, we do use the survey. We think it's user-friendly, insightful, and really actionable. So those are perhaps the most important 3 words to remember from my speech, which is, I mean, longer than I intended to. So thank you so much for the opportunity, Omani, and it's great to work with you all the time.
Thank you, Gülten. Just a quick question as well, specifically for the survey process, because that may be interesting as well for people to understand. Is there anything that you do in preparation of the survey? Is there anything that you, other than obviously doing great IR, right, which is a prerequisite to be even nominated? But is there like an engagement that you do? How do you operate within sort of the survey period, if I can ask that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's really important to be in front of the investor at all times. But perhaps if you are, for example, doing an investor relations event, it's best to do it at a time which is close to this survey, because being remembered, the probability of being remembered will be higher there. And obviously, if we have got, investors which we are really close with, and we can go to them and campaign. We are actually, asking for their votes if they deserve that, but we are more interested in your feedback. That's what we say, and we ask them to fill in this survey in detail rather than just giving us points. That's what we are interested in. So that's the kind of exercise that we are running ahead of the survey, or once it's launched.
Okay, great. No, thank you. It's really valuable. I mean, if there's anybody else that has maybe a recommendation or advice, how you're basically dealing with that would be great to hear. But I think the points that Gülten has mentioned is, it's really about visibility. On average, I think investors are, covering between 80 to 100 companies. So it's a lot of companies to be engaging with. So again, focusing on the quality of investor relations, the level of interaction, making sure that you are visible, that you are credible, that you're consistent, transparent, all of these things, they're not words, they're really actionable kind of efforts that you need to put in. And I think the rest comes automatically, I want to say. But I would also suggest that if you can, from a compliance point of view, you still have time to share with us your contact list on the buy side and sell side. We don't want your entire list, just the top 200. And I guess for us, because we're covered internationally, we have our US, UK, if you have very specific Turkish or regional investors that you're engaging with, these are the kind of contacts that we want to see as well, because invariably we will have 96% of the people that you are sending to us anyways. But other than that, that's me done here. But if you have any follow-up questions after the event, if you want to look at your own results, I'm more than happy to help and assist with that. But like Gülten also said at the beginning, I think IR in Turkey is a real standard setter. It's a real benchmark for the region. And I think a lot of companies that I talk to in other markets, they're really looking at you now in terms of real competition. So I think, obviously with the IR Society doing a phenomenal job in terms of professionalizing, the role and the function, and, allowing the networking and the learning, you're really on the right path here.
So thank you, Amani, for your time and sharing with us this valuable information. And looking forward to see you in our annual summit.
Yes, me too. Thank you very much, Bülent and Gülten for jumping in here. Thank you everybody for attending, and hopefully see you in December. Bye-bye.